Today, I want to welcome you on a totally new adventure. I want to invite you to the magical world of past tense. So buckle up, sit comfortably, listen carefully, and practice with me. Are you ready? Let's go. As you have probably learned, English has many tenses. Luckily today we're only going to focus on simple past. So, simple past tense is used to talk about an action that started and ended in the past. We don't need to know when the action actually began or when it ended, and we also don't need to know the duration of that action. However, we need to know some words or phrases that will help us to talk about the past. So, let's take a look. Yesterday, I was at work. Last week, I spent with my friends. Last month, I traveled to North Carolina. 2 days ago, my brother visited Washington, D.C. And in 2021, I lived in Connecticut. That is how we use those phrases in a sentences. Some of them can go at the beginning, others can go at the end. Let's take a look at some examples of past tense in very simple sentences. So, he lived in Los Angeles. I brought you many books. Jessica and Jenny watched a movie. I was tired last week. The child was hungry. Marilyn Monroe was a beautiful woman and she played in many movies. We are gonna begin our adventure with past tense from getting familiar with the verb to be in past. Of course, you know it already from your previous adventures with present tense. But when you met it for the first time, verb to be had three forms: am, is, and are. However, in the past, we will learn only two forms: was and were. So look at the examples and read them with me. Singular. I was busy last night. You were happy last summer. He was a famous writer. She was a well-known artist. It was cold last week. And plural. We were in Miami last month. You were at school. They were outside all morning. So now that you are familiar with verb to be and its forms, please take a few minutes and create your own sentences with was and were. And then we will practice it together. Now it's time for practice. So take a look at the sentences and decide which one needs was and which one needs were. Pause the video for a moment and then we will look at the answers together. Okay, are you ready? Let's check the answers. Number 1. Carlos was very sick last week. He was in a hospital for 2 days. 2. Anita and her sister were at the bank yesterday. 3. Last year, our grandparents were in Mexico. 4. Many years ago, Krakow was the capital city of Poland. 5. They were very happy when they lived in Brazil. 6. Chris and his wife were in Costa Rica last summer. 7. It was snowing a lot last winter. 8. His car was in parking lot. Excellent! Bravo! Let's move on to the next step. Let's move to questions. Of course, learning how to create questions is very important. So, do you remember how you formed them in a present tense with verb to be? We're gonna do exactly the same thing. Verb to be goes in the first position in a question. For example, were you home last night? Was he busy last Sunday? As you see, after verb to be, we have a subject, and then we have the rest of the sentence. And that is all when it comes to creating questions with verb to be. Pretty simple. Now it's your turn to try. Okay, now it's time to WH questions. Remember WH words like who, what, where, or why. It's good to know details, so asking detailed questions is actually very important and very helpful. You need to remember the formation of the entire question. So we need our WH word, then we need a verb to be in past, of course. Then we will take a subject, and the last part will be the remaining of the sentence. Some people call it a complement. You need to also make sure that you put a question mark. Otherwise, the question will not exist. So let's look at the examples here. Where were you last summer? I was in Boston. When was the test? It was last week. Why were you tired? I was tired because I had a long day yesterday. Who was in the class? Alan was in the class. And if you look at the picture below, the question really is, who was the first European in North America? Well, it wasn't Columbus. Actually, Leif Erikson was the first European who came to America. Okay, it's time for practice, right? We learned how to make WH questions. We explored how to create questions with verb to be. Now, I would like you to take a pen and a piece of paper, pause the video, and write the questions that will be related to the sentences you have seen. Okay, now let's take a look at all the answers. Great job, everyone. Let's move on to the next part of our adventure. I really hope you're not too tired and our adventure is not very difficult. And of course, you're ready to take another step. So, to summarize what we've learned, we have explored the verb to be in past. We learned its forms. We created negative statements and questions. Now, we need to look at English verbs overall. So, English verbs are divided into two groups, regular and irregular verbs. Regular verbs are very, very easy. Why? Because they end with ed. However, the ed is pronounced a little differently. But don't worry about it yet. We're gonna talk about this situation later on. Irregular verbs, that's another story, of course. They all have different forms. And unfortunately, you need to memorize some of them. And I truly believe you can do it. You can also practice them in a written and spoken form. So this way, you can definitely learn them by heart. Well, please take a look at the two boxes. The first one, the orange one, shows examples of regular verbs. The green one shows examples of irregular verbs. In both cases, we will see the base form of the verb as well as the past form of the verb. So please listen and repeat. Work, worked. Wash, washed. Live, lived. Need, needed. Buy, bought. Teach, taught. Cut, cut. Put, put. Speak, spoke. Give, gave. The first group that we will talk about are regular verbs. They're quite simple, right? Because they all end with ed in the past tense. So there is not too much of memorization. But the problem here is the pronunciation. The ed can have three different ways to be pronounced. So we can hear t, we can hear d, or id. It really depends on the last sound of the letter in the verb. Let's look at the three columns. you can see all different pronunciations. The first column has ed, which will equal t when we pronounce it. The T is pronounced after voiceless sounds. What does it mean, voiceless? Well, if you put your hand on your throat and you will try to sound letters T, K, F, Ch, or Sh, that means your voice cord do not produce any vibration. And when the verb ends with one of those sounds, the ed will definitely be T. So, please listen and try to repeat. Work, worked. Pass, passed. Wash, washed. Fix, fixed. Kiss, kissed. And let's move on to the next group. In the second column, your ed will have a strong sound, d. And we actually will hear this d after voiced sounds. Voiced sounds produce vibration in your voice cord. So, if you try to pronounce letters like R, B, Z, N, or M, you will definitely need to have a sound D at the end. So, please take a look at the examples. Read with me and try to repeat. Live, lived. Borrow, borrowed. Pull, pulled. Clean, cleaned. Answer, answered. Now it's time for a third column, which, if you ask me, actually is probably the easiest one. The ed has a sound id, and we only use it when the verb ends with t or d. Super simple. So let's take a look. Look at these three verbs in the column and try to repeat. Need, needed. Want, wanted. Create, created. Now think for a minute. Do you know any verbs that can have this type of pronunciation? Now it's time to practice pronunciation and listening. You will hear 18 verbs. You need to put them in the correct column according to the ending. So you will hear ed ended with t, ed ended with d, and ed ended as id. Let's begin. You will hear the verbs twice. Needed, worked, painted, remembered, lived, played, washed, cooked, managed, watched, fixed, twisted, eliminated, changed, passed, created. And one more time. Needed, worked, painted, remembered, lived, played, washed, cooked, managed, watched, fixed, twisted, eliminated, changed, passed, created. Now, compare your results with your classmates and check your results. Good luck, everybody. Now, check your results with the table on the picture. Did you do it that way? Excellent. We already covered regular verbs. Now let's move on to irregular ones. As I mentioned, they have many different forms, and it's very difficult to introduce them all and, of course, to memorize them as well. However, we can definitely look at some common ones that we use every day to communicate with others, or those who are simply placed in some kind of written form when we're reading books or newspapers. Well, in the next part of this video, you will see how the irregular verbs are actually divided. They have groups. so hopefully that will help you to learn them. So let's begin. Okay, let's take a look at group 1 and group 2 of irregular verbs. But before we go into details with these two groups, I want you to take a look at the column in the group. Each group has three columns: basic, past tense, and past participle. Well, luckily, the third column really is not of our interest, so I would like you only to focus on the first two, which is basic verb and past tense. So, going back to our groups, take a look at group 1 and group 2. Look at them carefully and think for a minute. Can you find any similarities? What are they? Now, pause the video for a moment. Talk to your classmate and discuss what these verbs might have in common. What is similar? I hope you had time to discuss the similarity that you see. Now, I would like you to listen, read, and try to repeat. So, group 1. Ring, rang, rung. Sing, sang, sung. Sing, sang, sung. Drink, drank, drunk. Shrink, shrank, shrunk. Swim, swam, swum. Begin, begun, begun. Run, ran, run. And group 2, feed, fed, fed. Read, read, read. Sell, sold, sold. Tell, told, told. Hold, held, held. Can you see anything similar? Do they sound similar maybe? Think about it. Of course, there is no learning without practice, so let's do it. You need to pause the video for a moment, look at the sentences, and put the correct forms of the verbs in an empty spaces. Then check the results. Now let's check your work. If your results match mine, you did a great job. So we can move on to the next part and explore other groups of irregular verbs. Excellent work, everybody. Okay, let's look at group 3 and 4. Can you see some similarities in this group? I'm sure you do. I would like you to pay attention to specifically two verbs in group 3. So, quit or quitted. Well, even though both forms are correct, mostly we will use the word quit in the past tense. And another one is knit. So in this case, it's also the same situation. We can use both knit or knitted. Now, let's take a look at the whole group. So, group number 3, hit, 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 fit, 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 knit, 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 or knit, knitted, knitted, quit, 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 or quit, quitted, quitted, shut, 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 cut, 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 put, 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 cost, 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 hurt, hurt, hurt. Super easy, right? Let's go to group number 4. That one, you might struggle with some pronunciation, so please listen carefully. Buy, bought, bought. Fight, fought, fought. Think, thought, thought. Bring, brought, brought. Teach, taught, taught. Catch, caught, caught. And of course, you know what we're gonna do now, right? A little practice. So, fill in the blanks with the correct verbs. They are presented on a side of the box. Pause the video and do the practice, and then come back and check it with me. Now that you have all finished the exercise, let's take a look at the answers. You can read after me. 1. He felt very tired after a long day at the office. 2. Last week, Craig bought a large TV and he put it in the bedroom. 3. This morning, a red car hit a man near the school. 4. Our grandma taught all the girls how to cook. 5. Mark fought with his wife because they had a different opinion. 6. Alan thought about getting a better job. 7. The police in our town caught the thief. Good job, everybody. Let's move on to the next part. All right, we're exploring group number 5. And as you can see, these verbs also have something in common. And I am certain you can definitely say, what's that? There is another thing that you may have noticed, which is verb dream. Just like in group 3, verbs knit and quit. This verb also has 2 different forms. The same will apply to the verb learn, which we don't have here. Both of these verbs could be regular or irregular. If they are irregular, they definitely are for British speakers, and this is how they use them. But American speakers will say dreamed and learned, which is a regular verb. So let's learn both forms so you can use them both. Now, let's read and repeat group number 5. So, bend, bent, bent. Send, sent, sent. Spend, spent, spent. Build, built, built. Sleep, slept, slept. Keep, kept, kept. Weep, wept, wept. Sweep, swept, swept. Feel, felt, felt. Dream, dreamt, dreamt. Or dream, dreamed, dreamed, dreamed. Meet, met, met. Leave, left, left. Lose, lost, lost. Now it's time, you know for what? It's a little practice time. So take a look at the verbs in a darker yellow and find the past tense of these verbs. Then place them correctly in the sentences in the next box. See you later. Pause the video and try to do the exercise. Then follow it and check with me. Okay, did you do it? It's time to check your work. I'm certain that you all have done a wonderful job, but let's take a look. So, listen and repeat. The verbs in the past tense are sleep, slept, leave, left, lose, lost, keep, kept, meet, met, feel, felt, build, built, send, sent, spend, spent, sweep, swept. Now let's put them in the correct sentences. Okay, number 1. Joanna and Tony spent a lot of money together last summer. 2. We left office at 5 p.m. yesterday. 3. I swept the patio and the kitchen. Now they're clean. 4. It was very hot last week and we all felt very tired. 5. His company built 3 new buildings last year. 6. Last week I lost my diamond ring. 7. Karina and Olga met in high school 20 years ago. 8. A big gray cat slept on a red sofa in the living room. 9. Jill sent 20 Christmas cards last year. 10. We kept our documents in a small box in the office. We still have few groups to go through, so let's take a look at group 6 and 7. The first one doesn't seem to have too much in common, but the verbs rhyme, and that should help you learn them better. However, group 7 has some things that repeat among the verbs. I am so sure you can see them. Now, let's read all the verbs from group 6 and 7 with me. So, group 6, stand, stood, stood. Understand, understood, understood. Sit, sat, sat. Win, won, won. Make, made, made. Pay, paid, paid. Say, said, said. Find, found, found. Now we're moving to group number 7. Throw, threw, thrown. Grow, grew, grown. Draw, drew, drawn. Fly, flew, flown. Know, knew, known. Okay, and now, of course, what we're going to do, right? We have to have some practice. So take the look at the 14 sentences in this exercise. The little cloud in there has the verbs. You need to put them in the correct sentences. You may pause the video for as long as you need and figure out where these verbs need to go. And then, of course, we're going to check it together. So let's go. And it's time to check the work. So, 1. The player threw the ball so hard that he hit a barrier. 2. We paid for the rent last month. 3. Her mother made a delicious cake for her birthday. 4. The children sat outside and talked about their school. 5. George won a lot of money in casino. 6. Da Vinci drew many beautiful sketches. 7. The soldiers stood straight for many hours in front of the palace. 8. They knew how to record a song. 9. All the students understood the exercise. 10. The boy grew very fast, and when he turned 16, he was over 6 feet tall. 11. A man found my dad's wallet in the store, and he returned it. 12. Amelia Earhart flew across the Atlantic Ocean. 13. The wind blew all night. 14. He said that he was very busy. I'm sure you all did a great job. Let's move on to the next part of our past tense adventure. Okay, and now we're moving to group 8. This is not a big group, and really the verbs that go into this group do not really have much in common, and they maybe rhyme a little bit, yet they are kind of easy to learn. So let's take a quick look. Please read and repeat after me. Dive, dove, dived. Do, did, done. Go, went, gone. Hear, heard, heard. Have, had. Verb to be, which of course in the present tense it has 3 forms, in the past tense only 2. So be, was or were, or been. See, saw, seen. Come, came, come. So as you can see, the group does not really have too many verbs. I'm sure there is more. So this is just what I think is important for you to learn. Let's move on to you know what, of course, practice it is. Okay, since there is no learning without practice, so here we go. We have 10 sentences, 10 verbs, and you know what's your job, right? Put them in the correct sentences. So pause the video, do the job, and then check with me. I am certain that everybody did a great job, but we still need to check your work. So follow me, read it, and I hope you've done a marvelous work. Number 1. Alice dove into the swimming pool and swam a few meters. 2. The students did their homework. 3. Last week, we went to the beach. 4. I heard about a new restaurant in our town. 5. My sister had many friends when we lived in Michigan. 6. My parents were in the Bahamas last summer. 7. Their daughter was very happy yesterday. 8. A few minutes ago, we saw a beautiful bird. 9. Her sister came to the party. 10. Our kitten played all morning, and then he went to sleep. Now that you got familiar with some of the verbs and their past forms, it's time for a negative form. Of course, is important because there is no way to talk about something if you cannot say something negative, right? So, the good part about the negative sentence is actually the same for regular and irregular verbs. And in any case, we just follow the same pattern. So, the negative sentence has a pattern, yes. And the pattern is you need a subject, you need a helping verb did with not, so didn't, plus the basic verb, and then we need some complement, of course. So let's look at some negative sentences. I didn't go to work yesterday. He didn't answer his phone. My friends didn't go on vacation last week. So this is actually the pattern that you need to follow. If you are wondering about basic verb, please take a look at the little box in there. The examples that I've given you was speak, talk, write, go, see, or read. Well, to make it clear, basic verb does not have any ending and it doesn't change with a person. So, everything clear? I certainly hope so. We can move on and you know what we're gonna do. Of course, we need to practice because without that practice, it's very difficult to accomplish learning. And here we go. You have 12 sentences and you need to change them to negative ones. Let's go. Pause the video and work on your 12 sentences and then come back and check with me. I am sure that everybody did a good job. May I remind you, please, that your sentence should have followed the certain pattern. So, subject, didn't, basic verb, and a complement. Now let's take a look at the answers. So, number 1, the girls didn't sit in the park. Number 2, the man didn't send his wife beautiful flowers. Number 3, they didn't buy a new car last month. 4, Carolyn didn't live in Chicago. 5, Brenda and Jill didn't open a new business. 6, Christopher didn't watch a football game last week. 7, Emilia didn't study 2 languages. 8, Jacob's brother didn't go to Niagara Falls. 9, the team didn't win the competition. 10, Catherine didn't take her computer and didn't go home. 11, we didn't fly to Costa Rica for vacation. 12, she didn't clean her apartment in the afternoon. And we're going to move on and explore the rest of the past tense. Now that we know affirmative sentences and we know how to form negative ones, we can address the question. Well, questions are very, very important because we ask them all the time and we need to answer them as well in our daily life and in interactions with other people as well. After all, we all want to find some information, and there is the only way to do it is to ask a question. So, to make one, we are going to need our very good friend, the helping verb did. And that did must stand at the beginning of the sentence. He is very important. Then we need a subject, and of course that basic verb that is a part of past tense. And then we need a complement. And of course we can't forget about question mark. Well, there is no question without one, correct? So, questions usually have long or short answers. It could be negative or positive. Well, it depends really on the situation. So, I would like you to listen to the examples and the answers. Usually, I'm going to give you short answers because the long is easy to form. So, let's take a quick look. Did Kevin help his mom yesterday? Yes, he did. But if Kevin didn't help his mom, we can say, no, he didn't. Did Anna travel to Los Angeles last month? No, she didn't. But if she did, we will say, oh, yes, she did. Did his father buy a new car? Yes, he did. Or, no, he didn't. Did all the students pass the exam? Yes, they did. Or, no, they didn't. And now we're going to do a brief practice. You have 10 sentences and you need to create questions. If you want, you can make your own short answers. It's totally up to you. So, pause the video as always, make your questions, and then we can check them. Good luck! Okay, I'm sure everybody have finished, so let's check it out. Number 1, did Maria cook dinner for her son? Number 2, did Elena and Jenny take final exams? 3, did Colin and his brother work in a family company? 4, did Darren fix his truck last week? 5, did John take his phone to school? 6, did Barbara work in the office? 7, did he wait 20 minutes for his bus? 8, did their grandmother go to Boston last week? 9, did Peter play with his brother on the beach? And 10, did Richardson win the race? Perfect. Excellent. Great job, everybody. Okay, as you already know, asking questions is very important, and asking WH question or so-called information question will give us more information or will allow us to ask for more information. So to remind you, WH words are who, what, where, why, which, and when. And of course, they are used when we need to learn more details. So let's take a look at those questions so we can actually use them properly. To create WH question, we need WH word, and of course our helping verb did. Then we need a subject, the basic verb, and a complement. And make sure you do not forget about writing that question mark. That is really important. Without that question mark, you will not get a question. So, the good information here is whether you have regular or irregular verb, the question's pattern is still the same. Nothing changes. So if you learn it once, you can use it for multiple times. Let's look at the questions themselves, and I will give you some answers. So, where did you spend vacation? I spent vacation in Carolina. Which Carolina? South Carolina. What did he do last weekend? I don't know what he did last weekend. Maybe he went to the beach. What did you think of last night about going on a vacation? Who did you talk to? I talked to my friend. When did you take the test? I took the test 2 days ago. If you look carefully and you look at the green sentence, what did you think of last night? Think of, in this situation, we have a verb and a preposition. So generally speaking, when you have that situation, the preposition will be the last word in the sentence. The same will apply to a question, who did you talk to? So I talk to, because the verb talk is always connected with preposition to or preposition with. Now we're going to move on to the WH word, who. Generally, we can ask, who did you see yesterday? I saw my sister and her husband. Who did you talk to yesterday? I talked to my friends. But sometimes we could use who with just a past tense verb, and we will get something like this. Who told you about this restaurant? My friends told me about this restaurant. Who made the cake? My children make the cake. Who fixed my computer? My friend fixed my computer. So the answer here could be singular or plural. Don't forget. So, WH question, get more info. And we're going to the next one. And you know what? Next thing is a practice. And now we go to the favorite part of yours, I'm sure, the practice. There are 10 sentences. Some parts of the sentences are underlined. So please create information question with simple past tense. Of course, you have to use the correct information question to ask for the underlined phrases. So please pause the video, think about it, and then come back and we do the answers together. Good luck. Okay, it's time to check the answers. So let's go. 1. Where did her parents go? 2. Who told my sister about the university program? 3. When did Holly travel to Brazil? 4. When did the manager open a restaurant? 5. What did we think of? 6. Where did Eva and her mom move? 7. Who took a long and difficult test on Friday? 8. Who did Jonathan see a few weeks ago? 9. Why did we buy a house? 10. Where did Henry work for many years? And that will be it. I'm sure you all did a wonderful work. Unfortunately, everything that is good will come to an end, and our adventure with simple past is coming to that point. But of course, your friendship with this wonderful tense will continue, and believe me, it's definitely not going to end. You will use it all the time. So, let's summarize it. Past tense talks about any action that started and ended in the past. And it really doesn't matter when it started or when it ended, as long as it was in the past. Well, you met your old friend, verb to be, remember? In the present, that verb has 3 forms, am, is, and are. But in the past only has 2, was for singular and were for plural. And then we had a chance to get to know regular and irregular verbs. And of course, you have discovered rules of pronunciation of ed. And yes, all the regular verbs end with ed in the past tense. That is very important to remember. Then we got to know some regular verbs. Let me tell you, there are a lot of them. We only had a chance to see a few, or such a small group, but the list is rather big. So please get to know them, get to use them, get familiar with them, and love them because they are beautiful. And after that, we have learned how to make questions because we all need information, remember? We created negative sentences and then we worked with WH word and we asked for as many details as possible. I have to admit, that was a lot of learning, a lot of talking on my part. And of course, we did some practice because, as you know, there is no way that we can learn anything without practicing. My hope is, however, that after all this lesson, you've got some knowledge. You were able to get some good and strong information, and then you will be able to use it in your daily interactions, creating new friendships, building relationships, and just enjoying new adventures with other parts of English. So we came to an end of our adventure with past tense. To quickly summarize it, we talked about verb to be in past tense, was and were. We talked about regular and irregular verbs. We worked on their pronunciation for negative sentences and questions. And I really hope that this lesson helped you to navigate through the difficulties of past tense, that you learned something valuable, and that you are going to use it in your adventure with English language, because believe me, it's a wonderful language. Well, if you liked it, please follow us and share with your friends all the content that is going to be posted hopefully soon. In the meantime, I want to wish you a very happy learning of English language and see you next time.